I am Arjit Jere from Pune. I am a nature writer by heart, and I have I have been a, animal ecology researcher through my training. But basically, I love nature since long time. Very cliched answer, but it's a long term love for it. And
Mm,
now I'm working as a writer for a youth focused kids magazine. But previously, I've done
mhm,
lots of
mhm.
research projects, especially on insects, which I like a lot. So just a short introduction.
Uh-huh. Yeah, nice. And I would say ki, whoever I have done this session, you are the most dynamic person I have gone through any CV. Like you have worked on a very different variety of organisms. So that was very much fascinating to see. So we'll come to all those small bits and bits and bits. But first, I would like to ask you what motivated you to get bachelor's in biotechnology after your 12th standard.
Yeah, so uh, I, I liked biology like since school days
Uh-huh.
only. I liked biology,
Mm-hmm.
uh, especially genetics. I used to like a lot, like studying
Mm-hmm.
all the Mendel's work and evolution and genetics. So evolution and genetics basically was something which I liked a lot since
Mm-hmm.
school days only.
Mm-hmm.
So and after discussing family and like thinking about it, at that time I thought like biotech had and it still has a lot of scope, and I thought why not go for it. So that was what initially got me into that field. But later,
Mm-hmm.
as I and even then I was interested in wildlife and environment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I was also interested in genetics, so that's why I went there. But then my interest of environment and wildlife became much more, so that's why things changed, which I am sure which we'll come on to later.
Uh-huh. And what happened during your bachelor's that you suddenly realized that I think you need to change the field?
No, so like I have been visiting so like national parks and like wildlife areas since a long
Mm-hmm.
time, since like school days also. Like I remember going to Corbett and Munnar, and I was fascinated by the nature there, especially Nilgiri Tar and all those iconic animals which are seen there. So
Mm-hmm.
when I went there, I realized I like this more than lab work basically. So when I was doing the lab work of biotechnology and all those practicals and dissecting I liked, but like the molecular biology practicals and genetics practicals, I realized okay, I like this. Like I like studying this, especially genetics, but the lab part is something which I didn't like that much, and I thought I am not sure I could do a career in that the long term. If I'm not liking it that much, then what's the use uh,
True.
of doing a career? But then my interest in biodiversity grew. I read a lot. So actually, I was interested in animals since I was a kid, but not through not through going out that much in school, but actually reading books. So I read a lot of books on wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
Especially there was a book I remember like 500 fascinating facts, which had lots of interesting stuff about animals. So and I also used to watch a lot of Nat Geo and Animal Planet, and I'm sure many of your speakers also did that. So that was always there. But somehow when I yeah, so somehow when I visited all these places in my bachelor's with family trip and sometimes with friends, I kind of rediscovered that kind of liking, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do later. And yeah, I was interested in evolution, especially after reading Richard Dawkins. So his books, Selfish Gene, and all these books were very influential for me. And that's why I decided to shift after that. So long answer, but
Mm-hmm.
that's many different actually factors were there why I decided
Uh,
to shift.
and I was reading through you used to write during your bachelor's as well in your college.
So we had like a college magazine, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which so it was a biotechnology magazine. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was collegial magazine for which I wrote maybe my first article in like early bachelor's about like how biodiversity is uh,
Mm-hmm.
important in biotechnology also, like all the medicine which are made from native plants, but how also we need to take care of conservation aspect as well, not just exploit the different natural resources. So that's what I wrote my in the first article. And I used to like writing even in my school days, like essays and all those things. So yeah, so that also has been a long part of my journey,
Yeah, that
writing.
was quite interesting. As I was reading through some of your interviews, you mentioned your time pass and your best activity was writing essays. That was quite uh,
Yes.
usually, kids will be more in watching stuff, and as far as my thing is concerned, I was always, not too much in a writing thing. And by that time only, you started maintaining this journal called My Enthusiast.
So yeah, my enthusiast is more of a blog, like than a hardcore journal. It's more of a blog where
Okay.
I wrote about like where I wrote about. So in this blog, I wrote more about like what interested me in evolution and wildlife and
Mm-hmm.
natural history. So it was just to pen my own thought. And because it's your own blog, you have
Mm-hmm.
freedom what to write. You don't have to go to
Yeah.
editors and see, okay, if this is okay, this is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I started in my bachelor's writing about wildlife. I remember writing an article on. I am not sure actually if your audience knows about this person, but
Mm-hmm.
his name is I think especially those in environment field will know. But I wrote about Alfred Russel Wallace,
Yeah.
who was very important in evolution. He actually also did find the theory of evolution, but at the same time at Darwin, but he was not as famous. So I wrote an
Mm-hmm.
article on him. I remember in my bachelor days to try to tell people, okay, this guy also discovered evolution, not just Darwin. I mean, Darwin was a great guy, but this guy is also good. That's what I wrote about. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
think.
how it started.
Yeah. And I think, in fact, when finally the theory came, it was, I think, collaboration of these two books, what they wrote separately,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
did
So
collab.
when you were when you were transitioning, and as I was reading, like your parents were quite supportive, from biotechnology to biodiversity. How was their reaction? Did they say, "Ki, no, no, stick to the biotechnology, don't change the field"? How was their reaction?
It was mixed. It was mixed, like not, but I had to convince a bit. But yeah, they were eventually they did agree.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I needed to do a bit of convincing, but then eventually when I did shift, then they were supportive
Hmm.
definitely because
Okay.
it's not a
And
mainstream it's not a mainstream career. I think as you would also
yeah,
agree,
yeah,
it's not a
yeah,
mainstream
yeah.
career. It's
Mm.
not like a corporate job, but it has its own advantages. Especially, it's very rewarding. I think mentally.
True,
So
true,
yeah.
true. Yeah, I think the best job can be, observing nature and writing about it. And so when did you actually started writing? What was your first professional, or what to say, when you approached any journal to write your
Yes.
article?
So yeah. So as I would have sent in your CV in my CV,
Uh-huh.
like my master's thesis was on antlions and a very fascinating insect which digs pits into the soil to catch ants, and it's like a very patient predator. It waits and waits and
Mhm.
waits for ants to fall into the pit before finally grabbing them
Mhm.
with their mouth. So it is a very
Mhm.
interesting animal, and I thought, like, why not write about that? Because I am sure people may not have heard of it, but it's so fascinating.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and it is a larva of this insect which does all the predation and eats the other insects. But its adult form is like eats nectar, and it looks like a dragonfly. So it looks so different. So
Okay.
all of this I thought about and sent my article to Save Us Wildlife, which is like an Indian wildlife magazine, very good magazine.
Yeah.
So that was my first like big article in magazine per se.
Mhm.
So that was
Yeah,
memorable.
I was going through that article yesterday, and that was quite fascinating. So, did you know about this antlions from childhood, or you just came across while having an observation and you thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to write an article about that.
No, yeah, no. Like I had seen them. The pits are very common
Hmm.
in like any
Hmm.
dry area. So
Okay.
Pune has lot of these tekdis, which we call in our local Marathi language, or
Yes, yes, yes.
hillocks.
Yeah.
So that is where I found it, and I discussed with a friend and professors like to see. Firstly, I'm talking about why I did it as a research project, and then I will say tell about why I did
Yeah,
it as
sure.
an article. So actually, no work has been done on this insect in
Mm.
India since like 50 years. Uh, so I thought,
Oh,
why not? Why not? And it actually is thought of as a friend of farmers because it kills ants and pests. But
okay.
mostly because it has not been studied at all. So that's why I thought to do it as an MSc project, looking at
Mhm.
how soil affects their pit sizes and those things. And I thought,
Okay,
if research has not been done, then I'm sure public may not even know about it.
true.
So that's why I thought to write. That's why I thought to write a popular article also.
Okay, so that was your master's work,
Yes, yes. So my work
right?
was on this very insect. Yes.
Okay. And this you found in that Tekri, Vetal Tekri, if
The
I'm
same place.
pronouncing it correctly.
The same place. Yes, yes. And I used to go there since my childhood, so it's like a very place very close to my heart. Because I'm in Pune only, and it is very
Uh-huh.
famous place in Pune actually for people to just visit nature and go out, and also some researchers also have done work on this takeaway, especially for biodiversity. So it's a very important hotspot actually, which we have
Yeah,
in Pune.
and I did my coursework in IITM Pune. You might be aware, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. So I was there for 3 months, and there were quite a few times, 2, 3 times we visited this Vetal Tekri. So when I was seeing those articles on your, CV, that was something to correlate with. Such a fascinating area, and you have written, I think, something about that place as well, right? About their protection. And so, can you just go through that the article you wrote?
Yeah, so bird watching is something I have been doing very actively since the
Mhm.
last 3 4 years. Like I have been interested in that like after masters also, but more properly I'm doing it since COVID, after COVID.
Okay. Okay.
So and I always wanted to write an article about Veta Tekadi since a long time, like since 5 6 years. It has always been in the back of my mind that I have to write something about it. I feel so much about this place. Then
Mhm.
I thought like why not write about the birds of Veta Tekadi because it's like a big hotspot for birds in Pune. Like in the
Yeah,
top
true.
five, it's in the top five hotspots in Pune for birds. Like at least 200 species of
Oh,
birds we see in the center of the city, which is actually amazing. Considering like Pune is like that hill is surrounded by all the buildings. It's like an island in the
true.
urban jungle, I would say. So I thought why not write about it, and that's why I wrote about it's like bird diversity, all the
Mhm.
raptors, all the grassland birds you see here, and especially why
Mhm.
it is important to conserve grassland because there's so much diversity.
Mhm.
And now like there are some construction like road projects which might threaten the
Mhm.
Veta Hill. So I thought why not combine all of it in the article. So that's why I wrote for that article for Angla Sustain. And yeah, it is
Mhm.
a very good magazine, Angla Sustain. I would say it's one of the best magazines for nature in India. All the
Yeah.
articles they have are informative and also engaging. So it was a very good experience for me
Mhm.
to write for them. And they are also very uh, especially for writers, this is important, and they are very careful about the fact checking and all those things. So
Mhm.
yeah, they are a very good magazine. So that was that article.
And if I ask, like, what is the status of that particular project? It is still going on.
Which project?
That making roads and which can actually affect the biodiversity there.
Yeah, it is going on. Recently, there was still yet to make the final decision, but it like the authorities are pushing for it, but of course there are protests. So let's see what happens. But like it's still ongoing. I mean, the plans are still ongoing. Recently, there
Okay.
was a stay, but uh, not sure what will happen. But it is possible
Okay.
that it might continue. So it's
Oh,
like it is a possibility.
so maybe we can expect another article on that.
Maybe if things become worse, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I would love to read that. So, as you just mentioned about article, so how do you select a topic for your popular article? Like you go behind a particular subject, then you write, or whatever comes to your mind, you just take your pens and you just start doing the mind calculation how to write.
Mm, sometimes both, but I do check like what has been written before, especially if it's not covered that much, then definitely I will write about it. Uh,
Hmm.
that's why I wrote a bit about amphibians also in one of my articles because they are not that well covered in media.
Okay.
Articles on like tigers and lions and all these wildlife you will find a lot, but some other topics are more undercovered. So I definitely search a little bit before writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how you select the topic of writing.
Yeah.
And what are the problems you face during writing? Is it like I used to hear like writer's block and all. So do you face such kind of thing?
Sometimes like you have to adjust according to the magazine, like what they want, like what kind of topics they want. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there is that adjustment which needs to be done. It's sometimes yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And pitching articles, I would say, is a bit frustrating. Like sometimes it's frustrating because like it takes time for
Yeah.
editors to also reply. So you have to be very persistent in pitching. But like once yeah, so once you contact the editor and then like
Mhm.
the mail conversation happens smoothly, then it is easier to publish. But yeah, pitching is
Okay.
takes a lot of time, definitely.
So pitching is that bottleneck you have to cross.
Yeah, yeah.
And before I move on to other topics, what would be your tips to someone who is just starting as freelancing and specifically to the nature communication from your experience?
Yeah, so I would say two, three things. Like first, read a lot about what is being covered, uh,
Mm-hmm.
what topics people like to read, what topics are
Hmm.
covered. Then deciding like a specificity might help, I think.
Okay.
Like if you know well about something, it's easier to write, I think. Instead of writing something completely new, that would take like
Hmm.
hours to just know that thing. For example, now for me, if I wanted to write about, let's say, sustainable energy, those kind of things, like more
Hmm.
practical things, it would take me a bit of time to know that in detail. But
Hmm.
if I'm asked to write about wildlife, then it would be much easier because that is more of my expertise. So that's those things are important. Making your niche, so to say. Yeah.
Okay. So I think those who are looking forward to a journalism, that's a key point. Find your strength and your
Yeah.
interest,
And
right?
courses also help definitely. If you do some journalism course, it definitely helps to know the tips about writing.
That courses remind me that you have done some course during your master's, right?
Yeah,
Something
yeah. So
about ISCOS, yeah.
yes. So India has a very not India has very few courses actually in
Hmm.
science communication, but this was one of them. So that was a course I did about like science journalism, how to
Okay.
present, write about topics, what kind of writing technique should be used, those kind of things. So it was helpful definitely uh,
Okay.
for writing.
And I'm just curious, like, do we have some courses like masters in nature communication, something like that in India?
Nature communication, not specifically. Abroad, there are
No.
there. In India, there are like
Okay.
journalism courses in Chennai and Mumbai where you can do it. But as far
Okay.
as I know,
Okay.
I need to check. But as far as I know, there are very few or none in specifically environment. There are very few or none actually.
Very,
But
very
uh,
few.
but yeah,
And
but abroad there are
and
some. And Coursera is very good actually. I would say for courses, if you want to do something
okay.
specific to environment or environment journalism or like science communication, Coursera has lots of good courses. So I also did one of those also. That was very
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay. So they can really be helpful for you to develop your skills, right?
Definitely, definitely, yeah. They
Okay.
have assignments
So
also
now,
and very hands-on. So yeah,
uh,
they are helpful.
and they give marking as well. I just saw like you got marks, very good marks in that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they take exam for that, proper exam before handing you over the certificate.
yeah, they do have exams. Definitely.
Okay. You got some 84, right?
Yeah, yeah.
84%. Yeah. So now moving to the next your profession, you did some content writing as a content writer in biology for a few months and wrote some chapters in biology for students.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How was that?
Yeah,
So,
so this was like more about like yeah, a e-learning kind of job because at that
okay.
time like research jobs were not that abundant. So I thought like why not? I already know a bit of the writing, so why not do that? Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, I did that for a little bit. It was like more about educational writing, but
Okay.
like it was good. I mean, it was good. It was a kind of different kind of writing, but
Mm.
I already had some of the reference books, like the NCRT books from which I had to make the chapters. But
Oh.
still the language had to be very simple, of course, because like this was for school kids.
Mhm.
So that needs
Mhm.
to be a very important consideration when writing for kids. The language, the simplicity, especially
Mhm.
because if
Mhm.
you yeah if you put the terms like uh, mating and
True.
synchrony and those terms, the kids it will go over the kids' heads. So that is very
True.
important.
True.
Simple writing.
So I think knowing your audience is the key point, right? To whom you are writing for, and accordingly you should make your vocabulary, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
followed by that, you worked in ISER Mohali,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And where you investigated the male courtship behavior in lab-based fruit flies.
Yeah,
So,
so it was
so
Drosophila,
you back,
very
so you are, so you are back to the lab for that particular amount of time from wildlife. So how was that?
yeah,
You
no,
decided, yeah, please.
the work was exciting. Like the
Mhm.
topic was very exciting. Because
Mhm.
like animal behavior is something I've always been interested in since long time. And this was
Mhm.
specifically studying like how the courtship of the males differs
Mhm.
among the different groups of males which were in like some of them had more males than females, some of them had less males than females. So that
Mhm.
was what I studied how their courtship differed across these groups. But again,
Okay.
yeah, it was for 1 year. But yeah, again that whole thing about fieldwork uh, brought me back to uh, applying for field-based research. But it was interesting topic definitely to study.
Okay. So it has always been like a fly only, always getting attracted towards the light. So you are getting back to the wildlife back and
Yeah,
forth,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you finally then landed in ISER Tirupati, so where you worked on bird occupancy in Shola Forest, Nilgiri Mountains. And I think I was reading on some of the articles that you got to learn a lot when you visited the Nilgiri Mountains. So would you like to share
yeah.
some experiences from there?
Yeah. So this, like, I had done field projects before, of course, but like this was like the proper field project. Like
Mm-hmm.
Nilgiri, like Western Ghats, have always fascinated me since a long time. I have visited it, of course, as a tourist, but as a
Mm-hmm.
researcher, working there was yeah, definitely a roller coaster, but of course a great learning experience. Such a fascinating landscape actually, and a very unique landscape, which is now being threatened by like plantations and habitat loss, which is what this project studied,
Yeah.
like how landscape changes are affecting the bird occupancy. So my work was more
Mm-hmm.
about like the habitat measurements, like looking at the canopy cover, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
invasives are there. Like eucalyptus is a big invasive plant there,
Oh.
acacia. So
Oh.
all these plants are there in that disturbing the solar habitat. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I did some bird observations also. So but my main work was looking at the habitat modification. So yeah, that was a the roller coaster. Field work is yeah, exciting, but it requires a lot of dedication definitely. So it was certainly a roller coaster, but I enjoyed it. One of my most
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable experiences, I would say, till
And
now.
any particular incident which comes to your mind? Like, oh, that was something peculiar which
Yeah, I mean,
happened.
I saw a very rare bird actually during that whole stint. It is called Nilgiri pipit, as the name suggests. Like it's
Okay.
seen only in that Nilgiri mountain south range. I just saw it flying, but
Okay.
at that time I was like, okay, it's just a bird. But then I realized, okay, this
Mm.
is not any normal bird, but it's like a very rare bird which I saw. Very fascinating.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Mm.
and yeah, just like the views which I got. Oh, of course, I also saw a leopard. The only time I saw seen a leopard in the wild
Oh.
was during
Oh.
going was doing when I was going to this field site, and like
Mm.
I had to ride my bike across a very
Mm.
short, like very thin road, not even a road, but like a kacha road.
Mm.
And
Uh-huh.
I was just going. I saw something just slip by across the road. It was like, and then I saw, okay, it had like a tail and black
Mm.
spots. That was the only thing I saw. But I definitely thought this was leopard or nothing else. But such a memorable sighting, I would say.
Mm.
So that was also what happened once during my time. So that was also very amazing. Also, gores I
You're
saw, a lot of gores, a big herd of gores
uh,
which crossed our path. So yeah, a lot of amazing sightings actually.
oh, during that leopard, your heart might have come to your neck. That
I
what
mean,
did you
yeah.
just see?
I just stopped. I didn't go ahead. But I didn't see its face. So all I saw was its body because it was going to the bush. But definitely a
Mhm.
memorable experience.
True. I think all those people I have talked to, those who have extensive field work, they have something like the same sort of story, which they feel bit of afraid, but they are always, grateful to have seen those wild animals. And I
Yeah.
was reading one of your, I think, popular article where you mentioned about this forest only that this not artificial, but this about these invasive plants because of decoration or something we bring in, which replaces the actually native plant, isn't it? I think you have written, have you written somewhere in some article the effect of this
Yeah.
invasive?
So that was again actually covering some research on invasive plants, which is a big problem now. So people do plantations, these plantations, and most of them are like exotic plants, which you don't see here in India. Like
Yes.
lantana, of course, is the one of the biggest culprits of this. Uh,
Yeah.
so they bring it like they have some of them is brought over by British, some of them we use for like ornamental trees, but like they grow so fast that they affect the native trees, and in turn,
Mhm.
because of the native trees are being reduced, they affect the animal biodiversity of the area. So that's what I wrote about. Actually, it's a very big issue nowadays. So any plantations people do with the encouragement of helping the
Mhm.
environment, they should actually think very carefully about what they are planting and not just go
True.
and plant anything anywhere. Yeah.
True. And I think there's a need of giving suggestion to institutes and other governmental buildings as well. If I'm not wrong, I think you also might have observed. Usually, when some even for the government buildings when they build, they will clear off all the native plants there and will try to bring in something exotic which looks good, but it's actually invasive, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think people are like fooled little bit by some of the beautiful flowers which some of these trees have, but they are not that beautiful for the environment. Uh, but
True,
yeah,
true.
that is yeah. Like organization should just like get some expert consultancy from ecologists
Mhm.
before like deciding what to plant where. Definitely.
True, true. I completely agree on that. Now, coming to the one project you are actually very passionate about, what you did in Ajim Premji University, where you worked on spider colony sizes, on spider web architecture. So please, uh, explain how was that experience?
Yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, yeah, animal behavior always interested me, and these spiders are a bit different. Like many times
Mhm.
you see spiders, they will be a single spider in its own web, but these spiders have taken a lesson from ants, and they are
Mhm.
actually living a little bit socially. They like just like ants, they build ant hills, kind of like that. These spiders build their own webs as a group, so as a social group. So these are social spiders basically, which we see.
Oh.
We see a lot of them in South India actually, in especially arid
Mhm.
regions like grasslands and those. Yeah, so they are
Mhm.
communal. So,
Lemon.
Harsh, one of my friends, is saying, yeah, kind
Yeah,
of like they are almost communal. Yeah, and I
this is
looked at how
something
like
new
they're,
I'm hearing. Yeah, something new
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
me. Yeah, please. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe they are not as well known, but yeah, I studied how like their colony sizes affect their silk volume in the webs, and yeah, setting up experiments was one thing. I set up the lab itself actually for the experiment because like Azim Premji was going into a new campus, and it was during COVID, so lots of
Oh,
things had to be done according to rules and those things.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I used to collect the spiders
Mhm.
across like my field sites, and some of the sites had
Okay.
like spiders on the entire trees. Like the entire tree was covered with spider nests.
Mhm.
So that was some site. But I enjoyed that project very much because I was studying behavior, and these are very fascinating animals.
So do they talk to each other in some sensory, with some sensory organs? That, as you were telling, they make web together, right?
Uh, Yeah, so I mean, they are very good at actually, they are very good at sensing vibrations, which is called like
Okay.
tactile sense. It's like that's the scientific term. So they
Okay.
sense the vibrations from the prey, and so one of the spiders, some of the spiders specifically go to check what
Mhm.
kind of prey it is, and then when it goes, it makes a vibration on the web, and then the other spiders they come to know okay there is something, and then they all come together. So it's quite a group effort when they catch a prey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
hanging. Yeah,
I,
some net.
yes, yes, yes. Yes. So, so one spider goes, it senses that there is something, and it sends the some indication to other spiders.
Yeah, not a specific indication, but like the other spiders, because the spider is moving across the web, they get kind of signal from the vibrations basically. So one
Okay.
of the physics professors in the university, they also did like a cool experiment. Like they just
Okay.
put some machine
Mhm.
which makes the vibration on the web, but still the spiders used to
Okay.
come out a little bit because they didn't know it was a machine or a living thing, but they send the vibrations. So that's
Hmm.
what they depend on. And the way they eat the prey is also like fascinating. They just take off the legs of the mantis or the grasshopper to make sure it doesn't escape, I think. They just take
Oh,
off the legs. So it's quite a scene
wow.
when they do the predation. Yeah.
Oh, such a fascinating thing. And they eat together? Is it like they all will make a web around that prey and then they will start sucking the juice together? Is it like that?
Yeah, I've seen them together. Yeah, but they most of them eat
Okay.
it like yeah. But their webs are also like very it's like just a random
Hmm.
web without any shape. Like you see orbivores, they have such
Oh,
beautiful webs like a cycle,
yes, yes.
cycle sport.
Yeah, yeah.
But these webs are very irregular. But it helps
Okay.
them. It is enough for them to catch the prey. So that's what matters.
Okay. And are these spiders are located like are found only at certain places, endemic to certain places, or we can find them anywhere
In India,
in India?
they are seen more in South, I think, and they are in
Okay.
Gujarat also. But the habitat they like is mostly like
Mhm.
scrubland habitat, especially, and
Okay.
thorny bushes they like a lot to make their in field.
Okay.
They like thorny bushes a
Okay.
lot to like thorny trees
Okay.
or thorny bushes a lot to make their webs.
Okay.
Maybe something about protection, but definitely I've seen that on the field.
Okay, so next time I'll remember if I'm visiting any such area to have a look on these spiders if they are there. And
Yeah.
after this was around some 2021, and then you appeared for GATE exam, and you qualified it, very good rank. So what was going through in your mind, through your mind, like you wanted to come back to the research for PhD or something?
Yeah, I wanted to come back to research,
Mhm.
but more in like conservation especially, and
Okay.
I thought like NGOs also and research projects also they will need some qualification, so that's why I gave
Mhm.
GATE uh,
Okay.
during that time.
In that you have, I think, some 50 All India rank, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah, I
was
like actually
quite.
the GATE exam. I like the GATE exam because it like
Mhm.
it teaches you to think a lot about the matter. I always like
True,
giving
true.
GATE more than NET because net was more like information based, as you would know.
Yeah, yeah, true.
So yeah, GATE
Yeah, true,
was
true,
really
true.
thought provoking.
Yeah, that is so much true. And then after that, you worked as a workshop coordinator in MITW, that particular university. And what is this Chatur Ulu lab? There you did some coordination of workshop.
Yeah, Chaturullu Labs.
So,
So one of my long-term mentors, Dr. Pankaj Koppade, named that lab because he works on dragonflies, and he was the same person I worked
oh,
with dragonflies for my project after masters
hmm,
as a project assistant. So
hmm,
Ullu because owl, and he works on owl distribution also. So that's why the name. I know it's a
okay.
very very unique name actually. So
Yeah, it's
there that
very
lab,
quite fascinating.
that lab they also conduct like statistics workshops for
Hmm.
students, and statistics is something
Okay.
like I had gained expertise in after my master's, after doing some
Hmm.
projects. So I
Hmm.
just like help in the outreach of the workshops, like sending like posters, messages, and like
Hmm.
also like deciding what kind of courses should be there. And
Okay.
actually I also did one small I also conducted one small session
Hmm.
about sampling in statistics in that workshop.
Hmm.
So it was mostly about outreach and coordination. I also coordinated with speakers whether they would be available for giving a talk on that workshop, and all those
Okay.
things. Yeah.
So with this professor, he has worked on dragonflies, and
Yes.
I think I have seen so many articles where you have mentioned that you have some true love for the odontology, and you worked on dragonflies, right? As I think you were
Yeah, yeah,
mentioning.
yeah. So insects I've always been interested in. Like since school days, I remember I caught praying mantis just to
Hmm.
observe it in a jar. Uh, so yeah, insects I've always been fascinated with, and dragonflies, yeah, I like because they are so colorful and so fast.
Mm.
They fly, one of the fastest insects actually. So I
Oh.
was always fascinated with dragonflies, and that's why I wrote about them also in one of the articles, and I got to study them, to study how like
Mm-hmm.
urbanization is affecting their
Mm-hmm.
distribution. So
Mm-hmm.
dragonflies and damselflies are bioindicators, especially for wetlands and
Yeah.
rivers,
Yeah.
because they're very sensitive to pollution. So that's what we wanted to see, like how urbanization is affecting their distribution in Pune.
Okay.
And because Pune has a lot of pollution in their rivers, we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
study that especially.
And what was the outcome of that study?
Yeah, so we found like a strong trend, trend with respect to urbanization effects. So we had selected some field sites at the western part of city, which is like Baner and Balewadi and these
Mm-hmm.
areas, which are like little bit undisturbed forests they have and undisturbed rivers they have. But in the center of the city, as you go across the urbanization gradient to a more polluted part of the city, then the diversity was less. Like the number of dragonflies we saw was less.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Although we didn't see like overall significance, but for some site definitely we saw like the difference in
Mm-hmm.
number of dragonflies. And some species we
Okay.
saw which were very
Mm-hmm.
specific to the undisturbed areas.
Oh, okay. All the name you are mentioning, Baner and Pashan, actually I was there, so it is taking me back to the time, to that
Yeah.
particular area, Pashan Road, and surrounded by all the institutes, ISER and IMD and other institutes. And I think followed by that was your almost a most passionate and dream job kind of thing you got as a nature educator in Center for Environment Education in Pune.
Yeah. So this was not like any planned
Uh-huh.
application or anything.
Mhm.
I just actually it was funny how I got the job actually, because I attended like a nature trail by one senior
Mhm.
educator.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
like I wanted to do nature education, but like I had not thought a lot about it until I saw this opportunity.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I just attended nature trail, and I was already into birdwatching then. I had done a little bit
Mhm.
nature education like informally at Dan Prabodhini, so I thought it would be interesting for me. But so that's how
Mhm.
I came to know of CE, that they are doing this nature education thing
Mhm.
at Pashan Lake. So
Mhm.
Pashan Lake is also, you may have visited. I don't know if you visited the
Yeah, yeah.
Pashan Lake.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have. I
So
have.
it's
I
like
have.
a
Yeah.
very yeah. So it's like a very big wetland in Pune. It also has lots of birds. And I attended one nature trail by a nature educator
Mhm.
at that time, and that's how I got to know C's the director who I met after this trail, and she said, "Okay, we also have this kind of job in nature
Mhm.
education. Would you be interested?"
Mhm.
And yeah, I was interested, and that's how I applied actually. So it was like a very chance happening. It's not like I saw this job on some
Mhm.
application board or anything, but
Mhm.
yeah, it was fun actually. It was very good to talk about nature and bring people close to nature.
Mhm. Hello, Arjit. I think we have. Yeah.
Yes, net issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were talking about this opportunity you got in CEE.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I used to conduct nature trails at Pachan Lake, especially
Mhm.
birding trails. I also conducted an insect trail, and the
No.
objective was just to bring people close to nature and spread environmental awareness. But yeah, the
Mhm.
participants were very interested, and I also
Mhm.
conducted some kid-focused nature activities, nature games, treasure hunt based on nature.
Mhm.
So it was very
Mhm.
exciting to see people so interested in nature, and uh,
Mhm.
maybe due to my nature trails, they also got interested. I know some people who are still who still became more active in bird watching and those kind of things after they did my trail. So
Mhm.
it was a very fun experience, definitely.
And it is quite fascinating that some organization like you work with CEE, they are taking this step to bring kids and giving them more exposure to the nature. Last time when I was talking to Madhusri, even they are also trying to get this, curriculum kind of thing in their normal curriculum. So I think that's a fascinating thing. What I think government should be looking for. And how does it feel, to work with kids, and how do they look nature differently than adults? What is your
Yeah, definitely. I would
experience?
say maybe this will be a controversial statement, I think, in your podcast. But I think kids are definitely more interested in nature, like in a more natural way than adults. From what I've seen, that curiosity, I think, is
Uh-huh.
more appealing to kids. Kids,
Uh-huh.
they like to explore more. They like to
Mhm.
have more of
Mhm.
the connection with nature. Of course, adults are interested, but like in kids, that enthusiasm is more like infectious, I would say. Uh,
True, true.
like even common birds, like if they saw, they are more excited about them. Like I remember we saw common we saw some graded
Mhm.
swampen, which is a very common bird. Maybe you would
Mhm.
have also known of this
Yeah.
bird, and maybe our audience will also know. It's a very common bird. It's very colorful bird because it's like purple. But I remember the
Mhm.
kids, they were so excited when they saw it because of its vivid color. So
Mhm.
like yeah, that enthusiasm is very obvious in kids. So it's definitely fun to
True,
engage with
true.
kids.
Yeah, I think they have comparatively more enthusiasm left in them. And I remember when I went for this bird watching, and I saw green bee eater along with my friends, and we were so happy.
Yeah,
I had a cam. My friend had a binocular, and we were trying to see the other bee eaters. And that was, I think, for the first time I actually observed a green bee eater. So
yeah.
that was
It's a
quite
very
fascinating
interesting
for
bird.
me.
It is very acrobatic. It dives into the air to catch the bees. Yeah, very interesting bird.
Yeah, and I think you have got some commenters there. Kids also don't have inhibitions about germs, for example,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
fuels
We don't have any
enthusiasm.
bees. That is correct. They are not afraid to explore.
Yeah, and okay, moving to you have volunteered in so many different various efforts. Like I think something related to turtles as well.
Yeah, so that was an internship, like my first field internship actually.
Uh-huh.
First field experience, I would say that was way early in my
Hmm.
master's.
Hmm.
That was a project we studied like nesting sites of sea turtles. So that was
Hmm.
definitely formative in my master's. In my first year of master's, we went to Anzarle, Keshi, and all these beaches in Konkan, which are now little
Hmm.
bit becoming more tourism oriented. But they
Hmm.
definitely are sites for olive ridley sea turtles. So we looked at how like disturbance is affecting the nesting,
Okay.
and yeah, that was a good experience. Also, it involved a lot of hardcore, like hardworking field work,
Hmm.
collecting like 10 kilos of sand and taking it from the beach to the field session, which was bit tiring, but it was fascinating. Definitely,
Hmm. Hmm.
I saw hermit crab and some more like starfish and all
Oh.
those marine animals. So it was
Hmm.
very fascinating. But yeah,
Hmm.
lots of hard work.
And as you were mentioning about these turtles and how, I think I have read news articles that human activities on beaches can really affect, these turtles when they come for laying egg. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask your opinion on about, our normal human behavior, social behavior around, nature, and what would be your, take on this? How should we behave when we are out in nature?
yeah, definitely. Like we should definitely behave in a considerate way. Like we should be careful that we are going to the homes of the animals and plants which live there. So we should definitely treat nature with respect. I see so much like
Hmm.
littering in on the tourist destinations. I remember going
Hmm.
to Mahabeshwar, Mathiran, and all these places
Hmm.
to see so much litter. It is very sad. But definitely there
Hmm.
should be more like consideration that you are going in nature, so let's not disturb it that much.
Hmm.
That consideration definitely needs to be there. Yeah.
And in fact, I'm also not that very big fan of zoos, but I think you have mentioned one of your article that you have seen people when they visit any zoo, then they try to poke animals. What I have also witnessed the only time I had been. So you would like to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, it is very sad and frustrating to see that like people treat animals in zoos like pets, but they are not. They have been imprisoned actually. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I see the positive of zoo also, like to educate people.
Mm-hmm.
It's made, but the people need to see it from that view also. Like
Mm-hmm.
they are there to observe the animals, not to play with them or tease them. Uh, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the mindset definitely need to change when you go to
Mm-hmm.
zoos. I would definitely prefer people seeing wildlife in nature than zoos. But at
Mm-hmm.
least if you go to zoos, like it's important to treat animals with respect. Definitely.
True, true. They deserve equal respect, like us. And now let us talk about something you do almost the same, the People of Nature podcast. And would you like to tell something about that to our viewers?
Yeah, yeah. So I am on a similar journey as you, starting a podcast. So actually, this is like the part of the India Bioscience grants.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to do something big in science communication. So that's how I was discussing with Pankaj again. The same person keeps coming back to him. He has been very actually influential in my journey. So he is a
Mm-hmm.
professor in MIT ecology department. So
Mm-hmm.
we just discussed like what can we do as a science communication project as part
Mm-hmm.
of this science communication grant, and we thought, okay, why not start a podcast? I didn't see that many podcasts coming up in conservation. There was a thing about wildlife podcast which is very good, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which also talks about like journeys of people in conservation. But I thought like why not focus their podcast to amplify voices in Indian conservation, to amplify voices which are not that well covered, especially people from remote areas. So we have lots of speakers from Assam talking about their conservation journey.
Mm-hmm.
People from Northeast, women. So we just thought of starting a podcast which looks to amplify unheard voices in India's conservation. So it's been going okay. We are still looking to increase our
Mm-hmm.
reach. So People Nature
Mm-hmm.
Podcast is the name of our podcast, and you will any audience who are interested, they can view our Instagram page also. So we are coming out now with
Yeah.
our next episode. In the weekend, we will try. We will be interviewing an environmental educator also. So we
Mm-hmm.
also try to keep the podcast like very diverse. So it's not like we
Mm-hmm.
only interview ecologists. We also interview environmental educators. We also interviewed a writer who has written in like BNHS website and
Mm-hmm.
other websites. So we try to keep it diverse, but specifically conservation uh, based
Mm-hmm.
podcast. So yeah,
And and where we can find all these podcasts,
yeah.
on which platform
So
we can
we
find?
have a YouTube channel also for the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which has received like hundreds of views,
Mm-hmm.
thousands of views. So, but we are also trying to increase the views. So People Nature Podcast is the YouTube channel also, and we also release our episodes on SoundCloud, just audio
Mm-hmm.
episodes. Even
Mm-hmm.
that has been a journey. Like initially, we just used to upload the audios on YouTube, but we didn't see
Mm-hmm.
that much engagement. Then I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, let's include like the field photos of the speaker
Mm-hmm.
also, like speaker
Mm-hmm.
they the photos they have of them working in the field or like them doing education sessions. So we also include photos from our speakers in the YouTube, so that is
Yeah,
getting a bit more engagement. So that is also like an evolving process. You would also agree, like the whole podcasting thing
true, true.
is very important. Yeah.
True, true. And I have seen some of those podcasts on YouTube. So there are fascinating photos, interesting photos to have a look on. And definitely the speakers, they pour down there all the, knowledge they have. So definitely those who are listening, they would love to listen to all those podcasts available on YouTube, and they can keep an eye on the coming ones. And about this podcast, how you came across this, this thing, fellowship, the grant you got from
uh,
in the
yeah.
bioscience. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am actually part of a, science communication for India group, where like all of these science communication uh, professionals are there in a single WhatsApp group, where like
Oh.
they might be journalists who work on science. There might be
Mhm.
outreach professionals. So every one of us
Mhm.
are in this group, and yeah, that's how somebody from the group also uh, post about career opportunities or like grants or those things.
Okay.
So I came to know from that
Okay.
group, and that's how I decided to apply. But the proposal had to be very specific, like why am I doing it? What
Okay.
should be the aim? But yeah, that's how I
Okay.
did that
Okay.
proposal.
Okay. Okay, so we are nearing almost the end of this conversation, so I'll end up with some two, three questions. Meanwhile, if anyone from you have any question, they can put in here, and Ajit would love to answer that. So first is like how you reflect on your whole journey. Something as lucrative as biotechnology, what we feel at present time, you just kept that aside and you went for something what you are passionate about. How do you reflect on that? How has
No, I
it
think I would
been
say no
your journey?
regrets. I would say no regrets. Like,
Yeah.
of course, this field is not maybe as financially rewarding as biotechnology, but going after your passion is very important. I think then only you will get some happiness. Very philosophical, I know,
Mhm.
but that's what I think. And of course, I mean, yeah, I would have, yeah, I would like to do more in conservation NGOs now, like for on-ground conservation, I think. But it
Mhm.
has been a yeah fascinating journey, I would say.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in comment as in the caption as well, to follow your passion, you don't have to have a PhD. And those who would like to, read your articles, I have read some of them. They're quite fascinating. The way you have described a particular situation, for example, I think it was about Vetal Tekri only that you wrote. You were in the night time, you were out, and you heard a voice, something falling down, and you just turned back, and it was a snake. If I'm right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's how like how I'd seen the wood snake eating the frog,
Uh-huh.
but it was a very memorable experience. So that's what I tried to invoke in my writing also, like describing the imagery and describing the actual incidents. I think that is
Mhm.
more fascinating for readers rather than just reading
True, true, true.
information. Yeah.
True, true, true. You see, I remember that as a image in my mind that how it would have happened to you. So that was quite amazing. So, and the very last question I would ask, what would be your take-home message from your journey to someone who is looking up to be a maybe freelancer or a nature writer? What would be your take-home message for
Yeah.
them?
For anyone working in conservation or wanting to work in conservation on writing, I would say, yeah, uh, try to get out there as much as possible in the wildlife, in the nature. Try to observe it as
Mhm.
much or more. Uh, Nature would never disappoint you, I think. Uh, and it is always a learning experience to just go out there and observe. And I would
Mhm.
say, yeah, even with respect to conservation, like anything small you do is helpful. We are in the global warming era. Anything you do for the environment, like let it be for me, I don't use. I try to reduce plastic use.
Mhm.
So that can be anything small you do, but it will be important for the environment. So I mean, you don't need to go
Mhm.
out there and work for something big NGO or work for some research
Mhm.
institute to do anything for the environment. It can be a small act also. So that is very important, I
Mhm.
think.
Nice. So I used to get this question like they want to do something from students from 12th standard that by I want to do marine biology because I want to do conservation. So I want to do MSc, PhD. So that's why I really wanted to ask this question because I found someone who has been doing a very a fascinating thing without having you don't have to necessarily have a PhD degree to contribute to conservation science and to produce something fascinating. So thank you very much, Arjit, uh, for making time for this session. And I think there was a question before I end for you. What are the current pressing environmental concerns in Pune that people should know about?
Yeah, so Pune, I would definitely say like encroachment, illegal encroachment on wild habitats like rivers and hills, especially. Is a big issue. Pollution is a big issue. There is a river development project, so-called development, I would say, but project which is coming around in Pune where they plan to like build walls and constructions on rivers, change the river flow. But that is going to affect the biodiversity a lot, which is also what I wrote about in one of my articles. So the illegal encroachment constructions on all these hills and biodiversity hotspots is a big concern actually in Pune. There should be more consideration in like these all these activities of construction. So definitely a big issue.
Okay. thank you. I hope that answers the question of Tanisha. And let me finish with this last question. Have anyone asked you और कितना पढ़ोगे? I don't think so, but in case.
The word about the podcast.
Arjit, can you hear me?
Yeah. So yeah, I have tried. Yeah, I have been telling people about the podcast, especially like I will spread the word definitely.
No, I was asking actually, have anyone asked you because do they see your career as a still you are studying and anyone asked you और कितना पढ़ोगे? अब बस करो, something like that.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. No, I thought you meant specifically about the podcast.
No. I was asking if anyone in your family, your parents, or some relatives, और कितना पढ़ोगे? They might have asked you.
Yeah, sometimes.
So fortunate. Sometimes. Okay. So thank you so much, Arjit. I had really great time talking with you, and I'm wishing you all the best, and hope to meet you somewhere to have more discussions like on conservation and science, communication, and nature writing. And thank you everyone who joined in, and maybe we can wrap it up now.
Thank you. This was a very fun discussion. And keep up
Yeah.
your good work. I hope your podcast also gets a lot of more engagement and views.
Yeah. Okay, Arjit. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye. Thank you
Yeah.
everybody for joining in.
Bye.
Also.
Yeah. Bye everyone. See you in the next podcast.